Okay, so sort of the last little thing that I go is asymmetry. And so this is just, again, organicness is about just little imperfections. Nature isn't perfect. And so we can go in and just, you know, tilt things a little different, break the silhouette a little bit. We're going to do some different things to just make sure things aren't getting too computery. So you can see here um, in some of these, like, for example, one kind of nice thing to do, that pinky has a tendency to kind of live out on its own. So having that pinky just sort of come out and break that silhouette, like in this drawing here, that's a nice little bit way of putting in some asymmetry. You got it here too, where that pinky just doesn't rotate out as much and breaks that silhouette. And that's nice. Here's, a really subtle version of it. See how that pinky just kind of like boop, pokes out and sticks out a little differently. Even here, you have this overall line and then boop, just a little bump to just break it up a little bit so things don't get too perfect. Some other things, think also, if you have a closed hand or all your fingers are together, think about the angle of the lines between the fingers. So here, this fist, see how the angles here aren't all the same. They're not all going in the same direction. So just having little, you might make a fist, having one finger kind of overlap the other creates these different angles and lines. And that can help add to that organicness by getting some more asymmetry. Some nice things to do also, we talked about those two middle fingers tending to group themselves together. That creates asymmetry within the negative space when you have all four fingers flared out. So that's another thing, to kind of group those middle fingers in a bit to get variation in between the negative space. You can see here, big negative space, little negative space, no negative space between these fingers. That is another form of getting some asymmetry. And also the thumb is another thing, just kind of like the pinky, to just kind of stick out on the side, when you're holding on to something, getting that thumb to kind of pop out in silhouette can be a nice little bit of asymmetry. Usually I kind of, when I'm doing the hand pose, my last little pass is going back and just seeing, is there a little thing I can twist or bend or break out the silhouette that's going to just add a little bit of natural dirt to it, some believability, and just pull back some of the mechanicness of it. We're just going to look at some hand poses here as far as our asymmetry. This one, very subtle, but little things, just how like this one finger right here kind of pops out a little different. This pinky kind of turns in a little bit. So sometimes it just needs to be a tiny little thing like that. So here we got all these fingers kind of grouped together. And then that pinky sticking out. And again, asymmetry, that pinky sticking out is a nice little bit of asymmetry. You can see our line through the wrist. That's a nice clean line. Super nice. And all of our little, the angles of our fingers are varied and not all the same. A lot of this stuff becomes pretty second nature when people are drawing, but it's something that we really have to consciously do in Maya. So we got this group of these three fingers and the pointer finger. And again, asymmetry, when you have these groupings like that, the asymmetry becomes pretty, kind of, you get it for a little bit for free. And then the thumb sticking out too. And again, just having this pinky just turn in a bit, even that little bit of asymmetry helps. It makes it, not feel perfectly rotated along one axis. Cool. So we got here, this is a nice example of kind of these two fingers kind of pushing themselves together. You can see that negative space really pinches off there and really gives us a nice, kind of that implied grouping that's not as literal as some of these other examples. And just little changes in angles in the fingers can help with that asymmetry too. Here is a nice, cool little bit of asymmetry. You know, they just have a hand, those fingers all rotated together, nice, simple group. But see how we can kind of see just, you know, a little sliver of you know, the fingers just rotated a little differently. That's a nice little bit. And then, of course, that thumb that kind of pokes out. Another little good piece of asymmetry. So just remember, try and keep things as simple as possible. Keep them nice and simple. Don't get too overly complicated. Try and maybe group some fingers together and just layer in just a little bit of asymmetry there at the end. Just sort of tweak, rotate, twist something, break something out of silhouette, just a little bit to help keep it from feeling too mechanical.